Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. I know that we just got Season 2 content with new delves, dungeons, raids, and a PvP season hitting the live realms just the other day, but apparently they got even more content on the horizon already cooking up in the oven for the patch 11.15, which they actually gave us a bit of a preview. With it being a 0.5 update, it's kind of like a mid-seasons update, usually being one that's filled with a bunch of class changes and major revamps and a bunch of new catch-ups that will help players looking to play new ults for the Season 2 have an easier time catching up to their main character, and that's essentially what 11.15 plans to do. But apparently they got even more content and rewards on the horizon. While we don't have the full official deep in-depth preview of this next upcoming update, they did give us a bit of a sneak peek at some of the major content on the horizon, from a brand new invasion style event to what looks like a return of Brawlers Guild and the return of Horrific Visions with some brand new rewards for players to obtain. And I kind of wanted to take a closer look at all this stuff in this preview for today's video. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for the patch 11.1 or 11.15 in the future, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. Now, the PTR realms for 11.15 only recently went live. Initially, I did a video going over in detail regarding the main features of this patch update, and then I decided, you know, I'll give it a couple of hours. Maybe they'll get the PTR realms online, and while I'm raiding, they do exactly that. They get all the realms up and running. So here I am, super late at night, exploring all the new stuff on PTR, or at least all the things that I can look at. There's certain things like I can't open up my mount menu or my toys or inventory or appearances, so I do have them somewhat preloaded to showcase you guys some of the newer items, but there's a lot of cool stuff arriving in 11.15. There's a lot of other quality of life features, and there will likely be additional changes like class updates, because 0.5 updates are usually some of the best out there and are filled with a bunch of class revamps. So I think there's going to be a lot more stuff on the horizon, because I highly doubt they're going to keep the classes as they are right now in Season 2, which is like, you know, season just started. We don't really know what the meta is going to be like, but I highly doubt that they're going to keep exactly the same meta heading into a 0.5 update, which usually gets a nice refresher. One of the newer things they wanted to add, however, is a big catch-up component as part of 11.15, and that is the Nightfall scenario. Nightfall is not only a scenario, but also an open world activity as well, where you get to meet up together with the Flames Radiance faction of the Arathi to fight against the Soreki Nerubian forces. Soreki being the Rubians that followed the Queen, but with our fall, they're still running amok, still trying to see if they can take a little bit of a hold of Ashkahed and Hollowfall, and you'll travel between those two zones, fighting off their invasions, which is very similar to some of the different invasion events from previous expansions. If you played in Dragonflight, we actually saw a lot of those invasions. It's some players would describe it as, I'm trying to remember the word, dream surges, but not quite as static. But Nightfall ends up being a invasion, but also there's a public scenario that players can join in order to fight off these Soreki forces to unlock new armor sets, as well as a tabard that will continue to evolve as you progress with your character, which is kind of exciting. Not only do you do that, but also you can unlock champion track gear as part of this catch-up component, as well as a variety of currencies such as Valor Stones and Crests, but also you get to unlock 2 new appearances of the Arathi sets. We've seen the Delve version, which is the blue, the PvP one, which is the bright yellow, the original one from the story stuff, and the crafting, which is the bright red and white and gold. But then you can go full ivory with these sets, which looks impeccable. All 3 sets, from mail, plate in particular, leather, and cloth, all look so good. There's new weapons that also have this ivory look to them. There's mounts, there's pets. The tabard also has that same look, and the tabard evolves as you progress within the ranks of this new faction. Not only do you get this bright white version, but also a void version of these sets. And all these armor pieces are war bound, so they're tied to your war band, so you can just purchase them on your main character for your ults as catch-up gear, wear them, but also collect all these transmogs no matter what character that you play. They look absolutely amazing as part of different armor sets, and just for that purple armor alone, I think it's enough for me to want to dive into this content. But it's another one of those open world invasion activities where players look to catch up ults that allow you to get lots of champion track gear very quickly. We'll see exactly how quickly do you get them. It looks like somewhat of a weekly activity at the very least, but I need to do a little bit more PTR testing. But there's of course an opportunity for you to get a bunch of catch-up gear without even having to step a foot into a raid. Besides this, we also have an event called Dastardly Duos. We only see a little bit of the blue post that talks about this event, but we can experience it, not at least for a couple of weeks, as it is on the calendar, and hopefully they'll end up shifting it up a little bit, unless it's just not ready yet. Essentially what it looks like and sounds like, it's kind of like a revival of the Brawlers Guild. They'll have you fighting against animatronic versions of past expansion and era bosses, gain a variety of different power-ups to use in these fights, and strive to defeat these bosses to collect higher and higher scores, either for bragging rights, but also for cosmetic rewards. And there's a lot of little cosmetic items that we've been able to find so far. Not all of them are linked to this event, but one that is linked, which is the Tyrannosaur, which is another mount. It's a recolor of one of the existing mounts. I think one from Trading Post, actually, in fact, if I'm not mistaken it. But there'll likely be other things like mounts, but also maybe potentially armor pieces, other cosmetics, and it's meant to be like a limited time event that only lasts for 6 weeks. Players have a mixed reaction when it comes to limited time events, but they're trying to, looks like, supercharge it with a bunch of rewards and a bunch of activities, adding more bosses to the rotation as it goes on until you hit up all 10 different bosses that you can fight week after week. And gives you a bunch of different requirements, bunch of different opportunities for players to be able to get gear. We can't really test this content just yet, but all we know is it's meant to be some sort of a unique player versus a boss type of environment where you get to fight multiple bosses at the same time. And if you go to the Brawlers Guild set in Orgrimmar and Stormwind, there's even NPCs right now, even in a live version of the game, that even hint at this event potentially coming out sometime soon. Lastly, Horrific Visions make a return as we get to revisit them. For many players that actually hear about Horrific Visions, I find out from a lot of you guys that not a lot of you played back at BFA, and I don't blame you. BFA was a weird time in the expansion, plus also you might have seen the Nazathian cinematic, but when players do hear about Visions, for those of you that didn't play, for us it was just another method of farming out Legendary. It was kind of a grind, not a lot of us enjoyed it, but everybody else that hears about these Visions that didn't play them actually finds them kind of exciting, and quite a lot of you are actually very excited to jump into these Visions to gain some of those cosmetics, gain some of the rewards, and try them out for yourselves. And they're essentially faithfully recreated with the revisiting that's happening in 11.1.5. You can even try them out over in the PTR, go through the early steps of being able to dive into Visions, explore, fight the final boss, collect some of the rewards. And we even see what type of rewards you can get from these Visions. You are able to earn gear at the end of a run, depending how many bosses you slay, depending how difficult you make the encounters, like with the different modifiers in order to make the fights a little bit more difficult, a little bit more grueling. You can get additional rewards. Also, within the Visions themselves, it looks like there's a bunch of different pets or potentially even mounts that you can earn. And one of the mounts that's tied to the achievement of this is the Void Fire Death Cycle. We've been wondering where this mount is going to show back up in terms of us being able to find it out way back in the day, data mined a long time ago. We never get to see where the purple version comes from, and this one is going to be stuck to Horrific Visions for defeating, I think, some of the more difficult versions of the Visions with all the different affixes and masks. As for some of the cosmetics as to why you might want to do Visions, it looks like catch-up gear is going to be one of them, as you can easily get veteran track gear, I assume champion track, and maybe even potentially weekly hero track gear. I'll need to do a little bit more testing, but it looks like there is some gearing opportunities from Visions. Not only can you get gear from running Visions, but you can also get weapons from weapon vendors after you achieve certain achievements within these Visions, where you can get veteran track gear that has all the same Vision appearances the Nazathian technically looks to them. You have the champion track items and even a hero track vendor for them specifically as well. So it's an opportunity for players to be able to get hero track items on all of their characters. There's also a variety of different cosmetics from mounts, pets, back pieces, very similar to the backpack that was sold by Rathian during the original BFA invasion. You can get the original one, but also a new modified one, and all the original appearances of Nazath, mostly in that green kind of recolor instead of like some of the other recolors that are available from the raid, but the ones that came from Vision were in that green, and those are the ones that you can regain this time around within Visions. There's also an upgrade system with these Visions, very similar to the original one, that allows you to stay in those Visions for longer and longer. So you're meant to dive into Visions, go as far as you can, come back in, fight the final boss before your sanity runs out, and use those upgrades so you can stay longer the next time you go in, so you can explore further and further, find more challenges, more difficult enemies, discover secrets and treasures within these visions. So it's faithfully recreated as an original system without you needing to do any kind of legendary quest line. It's also meant to apparently to have some sort of a companion that follows you in these visions, at least based on a blue post. It sounded like there was going to be a companion very similar to Brand. They can tank, heal, and DPS for you if you set them up correctly, but I haven't been able to test that companion out on the PTR so far. Maybe I gotta get further in the quest line, or maybe it's not available as of this moment. You also apparently will be able to get enchants, like the original corruptions back in Battle for Azeroth, the powerful effects that were part of your gear sets and items that added you additional these twisted effects, from tentacles spawning in to beam shadows at your target to gushing wounds pouring out of your foes, shooting stars flying from the skies, massive beam of twilight bursting out from in front of you. All of those corruption effects are apparently making a return and have been data mined as potentially enchants, either for your armor or for your weapons, as like a part of a catch-up process for 11.1.5 in order to make dungeons, raiding, and endgame content a little bit easier. So corruptions may actually be making a return of sorts, a system that was beloved by some, hated by others, depending on how it is utilized. I feel like a lot of players that play dungeons and raids actually enjoyed the power scaling that the corruptions provided, but for PvP, it was not that enjoyable to be running away from a demon hunter as you're bleeding out to a gushing wound when he only hit you with a warglaive once. So there was definitely a little bit of a mixed experience with it, but the potential of taking this type of power progression within PvE content, not included for PvP, if anything, I think there could be some fun to be had there, specifically to kind of relive those original corruption days and the power spikes that they offered. But for now, that's all we got regarding the preview of 11.1.5 content, at least until the PTR realms are back up and available. As always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy this update. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give it a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community, the best place to discuss all of the newest 11.1.5 changes as soon as they arrive. Also, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.